In a face-to-face class, one thing you might want to do is facilitate a discussion. In fact, that's one of the top things for interaction and engagement that I hear instructors say they do. There are some different ways you can facilitate discussions on Zoom. Zoom does not just have to be used for you presenting to your students. I'm going to show you 4 different ways that you can facilitate a discussion on Zoom. The first 3 are all whole group discussion techniques, and the last one is a small group that would use breakout rooms. The first method I'm going to show you is using a sequential circle. So if anyone is familiar with restorative practices, this is a common discussion technique that is used. A sequential circle is designed for initial thoughts on a topic where you want to make sure you're equally sharing the air among the students in your room. If you were in a face-to-face class, you would all be sitting in a circle like this, and you would have some kind of talking piece that gets passed around the circle as students take turns sharing their ideas. If a student does not want to share anything, they can just say pass before moving on to the next person. But this one does start in one place and goes all the way around that circle. On Zoom, you might be thinking that's very difficult to do because we don't have the ability to move our seats, and even the gallery view looks a little bit different for each person. So what I would recommend for doing a sequential circle in your class is to create a slide and share the slide that looks a lot like this. So I could create a circle on the slide, and I can actually put my students' names on each of these seats in the room. I can create a little symbol of something, like I have a sun here, that could be my talking piece, and we can decide where we start. And I can have an arrow to show which direction that we are going to go. So whether we're going to go clockwise, or I can rotate this arrow, and I can say this time we're going to go counterclockwise, whichever way you want. Right now, I am not in presentation mode. I am simply sharing a portion of my screen. So that is one option if you want to be able to manipulate your Google Slides or your PowerPoint slides while you're presenting. So I can actually physically move this talking piece as students pass from one person to another. If I were you, wherever you start, I would tell the students some kind of key word that signifies they are passing their turn from one student to the next. They can simply say pass, and that should tell the next student it's their turn. Next turn over here. Or you can even say that next student's name, saying I'm passing to so-and-so. So sequential circles, that is one way that you can facilitate some discussion around a central topic, either of your choosing or the student's choosing. You can also do circle conversations in a non-sequential way. Sometimes this is where you don't want to lock students into a specific order. You want the conversation to flow a little bit more naturally. You still generally, if this was face-to-face, you would have a talking piece, but that talking piece might get thrown around into different directions. Usually someone who wants to talk raises their hand to tell someone that they want to, that they would have something to say, and the person who has the talking piece can throw it to someone of their choice with their hand up. In a similar way to those sequential circles, I can facilitate this on Zoom by putting up a picture that looks like this. Students can still raise their hands using the raise hand feature. You also can choose to use their cameras. They can turn it on if they want to talk, or they can turn the cameras off if they don't want to talk. That's another option. And then in order to pass the virtual talking stick, you can either have a cue word of your choice in the class, or they can simply say, pass to so-and-so, and say that person's name. Sometimes for a visual, again, it might be nice if you take whatever you're using as a symbol, and once they've told you who they're passing it to, you can go ahead and move it across the room so we all know who's talking. So keeping the slide up on the screen is a nice way to simulate this non-sequential circle conversation. The third whole group technique we're going to talk about is a Socratic Seminar or a fishbowl technique, and I can post some resources about Socratic seminars because oftentimes these are very student-led, and it's helpful when you give students different roles to help facilitate the conversation. It really all depends on the level of the students and how many times they've done Socratic seminars, how much structure you want to provide for them. But basically how a Socratic seminar or fishbowl circle works is you have 2 circles. You have an inner circle and an outer circle. The inner circle is usually the group of students who are talking, and the outer circle are the students who are the active listeners. One way you can facilitate that in a virtual environment is to ask students who are in the inner circle to turn their cameras on, and students who are in the outer circle to turn their cameras off. This way students know who should be talking and who should be listening. Just like in person, you're going to want to do some things to facilitate the dialogue. A lot of times I use Socratic seminars when I have multiple readings that we want to have conversations about, or we do that sometimes if there's two different viewpoints on something and I have each group taking one of the sides. So one group always has to listen and one group is doing the talking. So that's a nice option here. Like if I did differentiated readings, maybe my outer group didn't read the inner circle's article, but they can work together on a Google Doc and take some collaborative notes on what they're hearing here. And then when they're finished, they can flip-flop roles and then the outer circle can talk in the inner circle about their article. It's a nice way to share ideas and to have students lead their own discourse around a specific topic. The fourth discussion technique that you can do on Zoom is a jigsaw discussion. Jigsaw, it means that you have two sets of small group discussions. You'll start in one set of groups. So in this visual, I have 4 sets of 4 students having discussion. So each of these sets of puzzle pieces would go off into a breakout room. And when they're in those breakout rooms, you ask them to assign each other either numbers or letters or colors to make a subgroup. So let's say this was group 1, and I said, within your group, give yourselves a color, green, yellow, red, or blue. And each group does that. Then when you come back together to the whole group, what you're going to do is rearrange those breakout rooms so that all the green pieces are together, all the yellow pieces are together, all the blue pieces, and all of the red pieces. This mixes up the dialogue. You can use jigsaw discussions in a lot of different ways. I've done this for differentiated readings, kind of like the Socratic Seminar, where each group was assigned, the initial groups were assigned different readings, and they have to come up with a good summary to share with other groups before I scramble them up. Or you can just do this for just different discussions on a specific topic so that when you scramble them up, they're now hearing some different viewpoints and everyone is responsible in those second groups to share what their first group had discussed. So that is 4 different ways that you can have discussions on Zoom. This one is small group, and then we had 3 different whole group techniques where you can still facilitate some dialogue when you provide just a little bit of structure.